Hello, and welcome to my podcast. Today I will be addressing the Cinderella Effect. The Cinderella Effect is the theory that non blood related parents are significantly more likely than blood related parents to commit abuse against children. They are particularly more likely to kill their children than non blood related parents. This is a very difficult topic that people tend to have very strong feelings about. So, the core idea behind this theory, which seems to be bearing out pretty well, though controversial in the literature, is that from an evolutionary perspective, men and women are engaged in a competition over resources allocated to their genetic offspring. So we have this evolutionary drive to get as much resources as we can towards our genetic offspring, and that means not giving resources to non related offspring. This doesn't happen on a conscious level. We're not thinking, oh, that's not my kid. I'm not going to give them my resources. I'm not going to treat them well. I'm going to try and throw them off a bridge so that they're not my responsibility anymore. It's not like the story that the effect is named after of Cinderella and her abusive stepmother. Rather, it is an unconscious reaction where we just don't have the same kind of investment towards non blood related children. Uh, the big counter arguments towards the Cinderella effect are around the studies themselves. There are claims that there is a bias effect on the Raiders side, where the Raiders are more likely to say that something is domestic abuse and connect it to unrelated parents. That doesn't bear out too well, but the studies that say that non blood related parents, whether that be step parents, adopted parents, foster parents, what have you, are more likely to commit abuse is about like there's studies that put it as high as 100%, which no, not 100%, 100 times higher for non-blood related parents. I find that a little bit high, a little bit unlikely. Probably studies like that. eh, I'm gonna guess there was something going on there, but even the people that say that there is a problematic Rader effect agree that this effect still exists. It's really just a argument over how strong is it. Probably not 100 times stronger, but it definitely is. It is definitely an effect. Now, one of the theories as to why it might not be this evolutionary explanation is the idea that non nuclear two parents had a kid, stayed together. The positive theory is that these non nuclear families of like families that were broken up or single mother households or what have you have higher domestic discord than blood related than parents who had a kid and stayed together. I don't I haven't seen a lot of studies that corroborate that there is this huge difference that could explain this effect between family these families that stay together. Plus, adding to that is like adopted families because we still see this same effect in kids that were adopted and foster kids. If that was true, like then we wouldn't see this effect in those circumstances. Uh, so it's very important to note that while this effect, in whichever uh, degree that it exists, is a thing, uh, it's important to remember that most parents Most parents, whether they're related or non related, are not abusive. Uh, yes, if you're bringing a step parent into the house, yes, it's more likely that they're going to abuse the child. But it's not like so high that you should not have, not like if you're a single mother, you shouldn't remarry. That's an extreme, like there are people that are trying to argue for that, that if we don't have these like non-blood related parents in the household, we can drive down abuse. But you have to remember that this is still a relatively small percentage of people. Uh, my personal argument against that is kids benefit massively from seeing healthy relationships. Kids model after their parents a lot. If you have an abusive spouse, or even just a spouse that you don't get along with, sometimes, like in the case of my parents, sometimes leaving gives you the chance to have a healthy model of a relationship, to have to show to your child so that they can grow. One of the other implications of the Cinderella effect is it's more than just abuse. That this unconscious competition over resource allocation also has an effect in non abusive ways. For instance, lower emotional investment. Like you're not abusive, you're just not as warm as you would be if you were with your blood related child. That is definitely something that happens, and it is an effect. How strong of an effect it is varies a lot. However, it's definitely true that step parents, adopted parents, what have you, show lower emotional investment than blood related parents, and lower financial investment in education. Step parents tend to give a lot less money to their kids. Again, the strength of this effect and how much this has an impact on an individual level varies a lot. There are plenty of step parents that like give everything there. Like I'm lucky enough to have two fantastic stepmoms who are very emotionally available, very emotionally connected, would give anything to my education or what have you that they could. So this isn't like every step parent is a monster that's going to be Cinderella's stepmother and abuse their children. It's just a higher likelihood of varying degrees. Uh, the Cinderella effect also goes a long way towards explaining the difference in parenting outcomes between heterosexual and homosexual couples. Uh, the big difference being there's just more non blood related parents percentage wise in homosexual parenting units because at least one of them universally is not related to the child, is not the parent of the child. You can have donor situations where like a brother or a sister donates, and that way you can have a second order connection, but still it remains that homosexual parenting units have a much higher, significantly higher likelihood of having a non blood related parent in the mix. This could be the big difference between heterosexual and homosexual parenting units. Now, one of the uh, arguments against that is there's a lot of people that believe that you need, and a lot, not a lot of research. That's an exaggeration. There is research that having two parents from two different genders, a male and a female parent of some kind, has a massive benefit for kids. However, a lot of these studies are really focusing in on like single mother households where there's like not a father around and that kind of thing, which there's so many other effects coming in than just the Cinderella effect or just the effect of a single gender parent. Like there's so much more going on that could explain all that. It gets so much more messy. The Cinderella effect is a much more clean and well supported by research theory that could explain this. Uh, there's a lot of posited social changes that people have made around what can be done about the Cinderella effect, most of which boil down to forcing the biological parents to be together, which is a, I'm sorry, it's a fucking nightmare. Like that's not going to work. The number of biological parents that either like shouldn't be together because of abuse or they just don't work together, forcing that together, I can't imagine that being less damaging than the higher likelihood of a non-blood related parent being abusive. I got to imagine that would be so much worse. uh, I strongly believe that the better solution is like the less glorious, like less getting into your like rocket boots and going out to save everyone and save all the kids, and there's no more non-blood related parents, so we bring down the amount of abuse by so much. I think the more realistic way to address this is the smaller, uh, each counselor treating the person in front of them. And if each counselor treats the people in front of them and treats them well and is able to make strong changes in their clients' lives, uh, reducing the effects of trauma from for the people that have been abused by these honestly horrible parents, uh, helping clients create better pro-social relationships, because while sure this Cinderella effect definitely exists in some way, it's not like it's a universal the only thing that uh, has an effect on people's relationships. Human beings are remarkably social creatures that have an incredible ability to connect with each other. It's not like the Cinderella effect makes it impossible for step parents or foster parents or adoptive parents to be able to connect with their kids. If you have healthy pro social relationships and you have a strong ability to connect with other human beings, this effect gets diminished to the point where it barely exists. And this is the small little steps of each counselor doing everything they can for the people in front of them. And then the cumulative effects of all the counselors doing this will have a large effect on this issue. I really think that's the best way to address this. It's not this big widespread change, but between all of the counselors working as hard as they can, this can be a large change across a large amount of people. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I know I went over time, but thank you for your time.